We've got some important quarterback discussions to have on today's show, but I was looking at the analytics and our subscriber numbers from this February to last February. And last year is kicking this year's ass. So help us continue to grow here at the Broncos Breakdown so I can go to next year's NFL Combine and hit the sub button down below. We've got an interesting show planned out for today. And the key word is interesting because we're going to talk about these three quarterbacks. And I surely hope that these three quarterbacks are not the starting Broncos quarterback in 2024. Like Russell Wilson, I wouldn't mind too much, but if it gets to Mac Jones or Zach Wilson, you really got to start questioning whether or not it was a good decision to move on from Russell Wilson. So we're going to touch on the latest NFL rumors coming out of the NFL Combine because there are a lot of quarterbacks that could be changing, a little Game of Thrones action, and the Broncos are definitely going to be in the mix and in the conversation for all quarterback movements. But the biggest rumor I want to touch on coming out of the NFL Combine is rest in peace to those of you that thought the Denver Broncos could jump up to the top three. It's not looking good. And I never thought it had much of a chance. I always looked at it as a bit of a long shot, but hey, it's the NFL draft. Never say never. Crazy things happen in the NFL draft compared to every other NFL league event like the trade deadline and free agency. I think the draft is the least predictable of all of those events, but the reports coming out of the NFL draft are not looking good for those of you that want to jump into the top three. Jeff Howe from The Athletic wrote, the Patriots really want to draft a quarterback with the number 3 pick. The front office wrapped up its pre-free agency meetings a week ago and seems to be on the same page that the best way to jumpstart this rebuild and yield long-term success is to find a young quarterback in the NFL draft to build around. So, not looking good, to say the least, for any team wanting to jump with New England to get Drake May or Jaden Daniels, since we know the Bears and the Commanders are going to go quarterback. And that means start looking a little bit closer at J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix and Bo Nix, because this is the next tier of quarterbacks that will be available to those that miss out on the trade-up sweepstakes, since, like I've been saying for a while, it doesn't look like any of the top 3 teams want to trade back, and it takes 2 to trade. So J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, start firing up the film, because those are 2 quarterbacks to keep an eye on for Denver. Now, the Broncos not having a second-round draft pick in most years wouldn't be that big of a deal. Like, it's not the end of the world if you don't have a second-round draft pick, but it's kind of an extra big deal this year because Denver should not count on J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix or even Bo Nix, for that fact, being available where they're picking in round 3. Maybe one of them falls to them, but the strategy should not be, let's go get one of those guys in round 3 and hope they fall to us. That's a bad plan to have, because if they don't fall to you, what's plan B? Now, unfortunately, without having a second rounder, their options are reach on one of these quarterbacks at pick number 12, force a quarterback pick at that spot, and pass on a bunch of other players that I've got way higher draft grades on, or find another quarterback plan in free agency, or hope and pray you find a guy in round 3 or later. Those aren't very good odds right there. And I would not be a fan of picking one of those guys at pick number 12, Denver's current selection. I would much prefer the safer pick at number 12. And this is not me being soft. This is me going like this. I like Brock Bowers a lot. I like Brock Bowers, and I like Terrion Arnold, and I like Dallas Turner, and I like a bunch of these wide receivers way more than J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix with the 12th overall pick. So instead of just taking a quarterback for the sake of taking a quarterback, and then in 2 years you find yourself drafting a new quarterback because you didn't even like that quarterback enough for the 12th overall pick, but you panicked because you weren't sure if any of them would be available to you in round 3, and you don't have a second-round pick, so you forced one at the 12th overall selection and passed on some incredible talent like Brock Bowers, like some of these incredible offensive linemen if you choose to move on from Garrett Bowles, or some of these great wide receivers when, yeah, you don't need a wide receiver for 2024, but can I get a show of hands right now? Who thinks Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are locks to be here in 2025? Right now, the 2025 wide receiver room looks like Marvin Mims and Brandon Johnson and Jalen Virgil. So it may not be the world's worst idea to get a jump start on the future wide receiver for the Broncos with the 12th overall pick. There's a lot of great options at number 12. But forcing a quarterback, that seems desperate. That seems panicky. And hey, if Denver comes out of their pre-draft meetings going, we like J.J. McCarthy a lot, we think he's the real deal, then all right. I'm willing to trust that Sean Payton probably has a better eye than I do when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks. But if they come out of those draft meetings with 20 guys they like more than J.J. McCarthy, but they just want to take a quarterback because they're afraid they won't get another chance later on in the draft, that's where I've got a bone to pick. I don't like that plan at all. So what position do you want Denver to pick at number 12? Let me know down below in the comment section. Now, I want to move on and talk about the New England Patriots for a minute because they are very relevant to Denver since both these teams are looking for a quarterback, so they might cross streams a little bit. And MassLive.com put out a very intriguing article about what New England's quarterback strategy and path is. And they've got a 3-step plan. Step 1, draft a quarterback at number 3. They just wait and see who Washington passes on, Drake May or Jaden Daniels, and they will take the sloppy seconds. Step number 2, trade Mac Jones. Step number 3, sign a veteran quarterback. Now, step number 2 and step number 3 are extra relevant to Denver because, yeah, the Broncos, if they can't move up to number 3, what do they care if it's Drake May or Jaden Daniels? However, if it is one of those two quarterbacks, like Drake May, for example, that could tie into step number 3. Allow me to explain. There are insiders in the NFL that believe Drake May need to sit a year and that he's not ready to be a week 1 NFL starter. Whereas Jaden Daniels, he played a lot of football at Arizona State, transferred to LSU, played a lot of football in Baton Rouge. Drake May is a 2-year starter. So some feel like May could benefit from sitting for a year. And if he does end up in New England because Washington takes Jaden Daniels, just stick with me for a moment, well, Russell Wilson could be a perfect bridge quarterback for Drake May if New England does want to have May sit for a year. So now we're starting to connect the dots. The Patriots get Drake May and they want him to sit a year, which some NFL draft insiders believe is the best course of action. And if you think about who's calling the shots in New England, it's a guy that was helping Elliott Wolf in Green Bay for a long time, where Aaron Rodgers sat and Jordan Love sat. So he may bring that train of thought to Foxborough. And so now we go full circle and we land on Russell Wilson as a potential short-term 1-year quarterback for New England while their Jaden Daniels or Drake May sits for a year. And if that's the case, I don't expect to trade. George Payton said he has not gotten any calls for a Russell Wilson trade, but maybe the Patriots think that Russell Wilson would be the perfect bridge quarterback for them. And they don't want to chance it in free agency, so they work out a deal with Denver. Of course, in this hypothetical trade, Russell Wilson would rip up his contract, knowing there is no way the New England Patriots would take on the contract he signed. But maybe Russell Wilson would waive his no-trade clause and rip up that contract because he's just so happy that a team wants him. And that is a pretty nice feeling to be wanted. And I don't think Russell Wilson is feeling very wanted right now. All right, we have more to get to on this subject, but really quickly, a word from our friends at PrizePicks. The NFL Combine is off and running, and let's be honest, it can be a bit dry. But if you find yourself at a sports bar this weekend with the NFL Combine on, you know it's a great way to stay engaged with PrizePicks. Football season may be over, but the action on the floor is heating up, whether that's the hardwood or the turf at Lucas Oil Stadium. And here's how daily fantasy sports works in North America. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in thanks to PrizePicks, the largest DFS platform in North America. So download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. These are my selections for the NFL Combine. I'm taking the less on Troy Franklin's 40-yard dash, meaning I think he'll run below a 4.36 40-yarder. I also like the less on Mitchell out of Texas. That kid can fly. And I like the more on his teammate out of Austin. So if you like these selections, feel free to ride with me. Or if you have your own selections, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. I have put all that information in the comments and description of today's video because I love you guys so much. I want to share with you guys a quote from masslive.com about the Patriots QB plan, where Karen writes, earlier this offseason, one NFL executive told Mass Live he thought the Patriots could acquire a 4th or 5th round draft pick for Jones. Let me just stop Karen right there and say, hard pass on trading a 4th or a 5th for Mac Jones. The quarterback position is so hard to nail down that I'm okay with using a 6th or a 7th rounder on a guy that at one point was deemed a first-round talent, right? We talked about this with Trey Lance, and now we can have a similar conversation with Mac Jones, who in 3 seasons in New England had a lot of success in year 1 as a rookie, but experienced multiple benchings the last 2 years and really butted heads and was a toxic relationship with his offensive coaching staff. And I could live in a world where Mac Jones that doesn't have a Matt Patricia calling his plays and ultimately just gets to move on from what was a messy relationship in the post-Tom Brady era, could have some success. But I'm not willing to bet a 4th or a 5th round draft pick on Mac Jones because he had some really bad mistakes, just fundamental throwing across your body against the Dallas Cowboys for easy pick 6 type of mistakes that you don't want to see in year 3. And that's what we saw this past fall. And ultimately why Belichick decided to try out Bailey Zappi. And even if Bailey Zappi was no better, he knew he just got ahead and get through the rest of the season. So Mac Jones for a 6th or a 7th, yeah, I can make do with that. If it doesn't work out, what did it cost you? A 6th or a 7th round draft pick. How many Broncos 6th or 7th round draft picks out there have been Pro Bowlers? Like, you can stomach losing out on a 7th rounder and that player not working out well for you. But a 4th or a 5th, no, you can find some really good talent in round 4 or 5 of the NFL draft. So here's the trade idea that some NFL exec told MassLive.com. Mac Jones for a 5th. Would you guys do this? I'm passing. No. If it's Mac Jones for a 7th, yeah, bring him in, right? Have Mac Jones, have Jarrett Stidham, have a rookie quarterback compete. Let the best man win that job. All of them need a little bit of competition, right? None of those guys, whether it's Mac Jones, Jarrett Stidham, or a rookie, should be walking into Broncos training camp feeling threatened by having another quarterback on their roster competing for their starting job. It is open season, baby, right? This is the movie Invincible for the Broncos quarterback room in 2024. But I'm not willing to bet a 5th rounder on Mac Jones. Too high of a price for me. Let me know if you would do this trade, though, in the comment section. Let's talk about another failed first-round draft pick quarterback. That is Zach Wilson. So, in the least shocking news of the entire week, the Jets are giving Zach Wilson permission to seek a trade. Now, there was a report that came out from The Athletic that said there are 3 teams that are already out, O-U-T, on Zach Wilson. The Broncos, 49ers, and Bills. Here's what Zach Rosenblatt wrote. The Broncos might pursue a young quarterback either in the draft or trade, like a Sam Howell or Justin Fields. But the impression I got at the Combine is Wilson won't be on their list of targets. And this is good to hear. I don't think I'd actually even throw a 7th rounder for Zach Wilson. He's not a good quarterback. We have seen a lot of Zach Wilson. We saw some good moments from Mac Jones. We saw a good season out of Mac Jones. We've never seen Zach Wilson put together good back-to-back games, good 4 quarters in a row. So, no. Trading for Zach Wilson makes what this franchise has become the last near decade, ever since 2016, a joke. It has been a joke of a franchise for the last 6-7 years at this point. The longest Super Bowl drought for any franchise that has ever won. Playoff drought, excuse me. For any franchise that has ever won a Super Bowl, yeah. Pass on Zach Wilson on all fronts. Now, one name that did jump out to me was Sam Howell. I don't think Justin Fields is happening. We talked about that before on the channel, so we can kind of gloss over that. But Sam Howell's a new name. And I don't know why we're not hearing more about Sam Howell. Like, I could see why Washington would be very open to holding on to Sam Howell, even if they draft another quarterback, because having a good backup is very important. And you just saw how the Indianapolis Colts lost Anthony Richardson, but they had a good backup in Gardner Minshew, and that team stayed competitive. That team didn't quit. They came down to all the way to Week 18. But if Washington does want to, get a good draft pick for Sam Howell after putting some good things on tape this year, we saw that firsthand back in Week 2. Well, Sam Howell is definitely intriguing. So I want to get the pulse of everyone watching right now. Should I do a video about trading for Sam Howell? I'll let you guys do my job for me and give me a break here. So let me know, yes or no, down below in the comment section. Should we do a video about Sam Howell potentially coming to the Broncos? That will do it for us on this edition of the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will sign off and see you guys later.